Good afternoon, children.
Good afternoon.
We will start a new chapter now, and it's about neural control and coordination. Already we completed chemical control and coordination, and in class 10 you have learned that control and coordination is brought about by two systems in our body. One is our endocrine system and the other one is nervous system. Together, these two systems will bring about control and coordination. Hope you are remembering the chapter control and coordination you learned in class 10. So already we have completed chemical coordination, or the coordination brought about by the different endocrine glands and the hormones produced. Now what we need to learn is neural control and coordination, or the control and coordination brought about by the nervous system. So let's see more about neural control. Neural control and coordination. Coordination is a process through which different organs interact and complement the functions of one another. So coordination is very, very important for the smooth functioning of a body. And we can define it as the process by which two or more organs interact and complement the functions of one another, bringing about the smooth functioning of the body. A neural system plays a very important role in bringing about coordination, as I already mentioned. It consists of neurons, so nerve cells, which can detect, receive, and transmit different kinds of stimuli. So nervous system consists of different types of nerve cells capable of detecting, receiving, and transferring different kinds of stimuli. Human neural system or human nervous system, already we had mentioned about this in one of the chapters. You can divide human nervous system broadly into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, or central and peripheral neural systems. Central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord, whereas peripheral nervous system consists of the different nerves which are associated with central nervous system, and it consists of two types of fibers, efferent and efferent. Efferent fibers and efferent fibers. The difference between the two types of fibers is that efferent fibers, they'll transmit impulses from your body parts, from tissues and organs to the central nervous system. Whereas efferent, they will transmit the regulatory impulses from the central nervous system to the peripheral tissues and organs. So one set of neurons will be carrying the messages from different parts, the information or the messages from different parts of a body will be taken to the central nervous system. When you see something or when you touch something, so all those from your muscles or from your tissues, the message goes to the brain, that is carried out by efferent fibers. And once the message reaches their brain or spinal cord, they will analyze it and they will give the command how we need to respond to that. All these steps will take place so quickly or within a fraction of a second, and the message or the command from the brain or the spinal cord will be taken to your tissues or organs by means of another set of nerve cells or another set of neurons, which you call as efferent fibers. So efferent and efferent fibers. Efferent fibers, they will transmit the command or the regulatory impulses from brain and spinal cord to various tissues and organs. And Neuron is the structural and functional unit of nervous system, should not be confused with nephron. Nephron is the functional unit in a kidney and the filtering unit in a kidney, whereas neuron is a structural and functional unit of nervous system or neural system. Hope you have understood the classification of your neural system. Central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system consists of efferent and efferent fibers. But there is yet another categorization which you will be learning. Already we had discussed it before. And peripheral nervous system consists of different types of nerves, efferent and efferent nerve fibers. The peripheral nervous system is divided into two types: somatic neural system and autonomic neural system. Somatic and autonomic. Already we discussed that peripheral nervous system consists of nerve fibers, two types of nerve fibers, efferent and efferent. But we can broadly classify peripheral nervous system into two types: somatic and autonomic. Autonomic nervous system, we can even call it as visceral nervous system. Starting with the first one, somatic neural system. Somatic neural system consists of the different nerves which relays impulses from the central nervous system to the skeletal muscles. So from the central nervous system, it consists of efferent fibers. From the central nervous system to the skeletal muscles, those muscles come under, those nerves come under somatic neural system. Whereas autonomic nervous system consists of those nerves which transmits impulses from the central nervous system to the involuntary organs and smooth muscles. That is why we even call it as visceral nervous system. The term viscera means the internal organs. So first one, somatic nervous system, they will carry the impulses from the central nervous system to the skeletal muscles. Whereas autonomic nervous system, they will relay the impulses between the central nervous system to the different involuntary organs. You know that internal organs are involuntary. You cannot control their functioning according to your will. And these are made up of smooth muscles. The internal organs are made up of smooth muscles are made up of involuntary muscles which cannot be controlled. And hope you have understood the difference. An autonomic nervous system can be further categorized into sympathetic neural system and parasympathetic neural system, which are antagonistic in their function. This we discussed earlier, because sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, they are opposite in their action. If one is increasing the heartbeat, the other one decreases. One is dilating the pupil, one will bring about the constriction of the pupil. So they are opposite in their action. So once again, we'll have a quick recap of what we learned now. We discussed about human nervous system. Broadly, you divide it into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord, whereas peripheral nervous system consists of the different nerves which are associated with central nervous system. And there are two types of nerves, efferent and efferent. Efferent will carry the impulses from the tissues and organs to the central nervous system, whereas efferent will transmit or relay the messages from central nervous system to the peripheral tissues and organs. And peripheral nervous system, you can broadly categorize them into somatic and autonomic nervous system. Peripheral nervous system can be categorized into autonomic and somatic. Somatic nervous system consists of those nerves which carry the impulses from the central nervous system to the skeletal muscles. You know, skeletal muscles are voluntary. Whereas autonomic nervous system, they will carry the messages from the central nervous system to the different involuntary organs and smooth muscles. And autonomic nervous system, it's further categorized into two types, sympathetic and parasympathetic, which are opposite in their action, or you can say they are antagonistic, means They are opposite in their action. One is increasing blood pressure, the other one will decrease. So they are opposite in their action. That is why you call it as antagonistic in action. Okay. So is that clear, children? You want any more explanation?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So quickly summarize what we learned. Lydia.
Yes,
Start
ma'am.
from human neural system or human nervous system. It consists of, or you can broadly categorize it into,
Two parts.
which are those two? This you are learning lower
Per-
classes now.
Peripheral.
Peripheral and which is the main one?
Central.
Central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. What comes under central nervous system, Steffi?
Brain and spinal cord.
Brain and spinal cord. Punya, peripheral.
Nerves associated with central nervous system.
Which are the two types of, in terms of nerve fibers, how can you categorize? Which are the two types? Gayatri.
Afferent fibers.
Afferent and efferent, how do they differ?
Afferent fibers, they take the impulses from the tissues to the central nervous system, and efferent will take the impulses from the central to the tissues.
Okay, okay, good. Then we also learned at another classification of peripheral nervous system. So in terms of fibers, we discussed. Then how can you classify peripheral nervous system, Anna? How do you classify?
Somatic neural system and
Somatic neural system and
autonomic
autonomic nervous system. What is meant by peripheral nervous system, Nidhi? Sorry, somatic nervous system. Somatic nervous system.
relays impulses from CNS to the
CNS means what?
central nervous system,
Okay, to
skeletal muscles.
skeletal muscles. And so we have completed a somatic neural system. Which is the other subdivision, Naureen?
Autonomic neural system.
Autonomic nervous system. So what do you know about autonomic nervous system?
It transmits impulses from the central nervous system to involuntary organs and smooth muscles of the body.
Okay. Then what else we learned, Malavika?
It is further classified into sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Which are antagonistic in their action. So let us continue. Okay, now let's learn about the structure of a nerve cell or a neuron. It's a microscopic structure and it consists of three major parts. I think from class 8, you're learning the structure of a nerve cell. So broadly, you can categorize it into three parts: cell body, dendrites, and axon. So you can distinguish three main parts: cell body, axon, then dendrites. These are the three major parts of a nerve cell. So we'll start with the first one, cell body. Cell body is provided with cytoplasm, then cell organelles. Just like any other cell, nerve cell also consists of different cell organelles, and it's having some granules known as Nissel's granules, some granular structure you can see scattered in the cytoplasm, and these granular substances help in protein synthesis. Just like endoplasmic reticulum, they will help in protein synthesis. So cell body consists of cytoplasm, cell organelles, and even the main component, nucleus. Cell body consists of nucleus, then there is cytoplasm, cell organelles, and Nissel's granules. So there are three parts: cell body, dendrites, axon. And cell body consists of nucleus, cytoplasm, cell organelles, and Nissel's granules. Nissel's granules are granular structures which will help in protein synthesis. Now moving on to the next part, dendrites. These are short branching fibers. Why do you call it as short branching fibers? Because we have long fibers also. So these are short branching fibers, and they project from the cell body. Actually, first the dendrons. Dendrons will be from, these are known as dendrons. Okay, these are dendrons, and dendrons will further branch and form smaller branches known as dendrites. So dendrites project out from the cell body. They too contain Nissl granules, and their function is to transmit. They receive the nerve impulse and they will transmit it to the cell body. Okay, there'll be dendrite will receive the nerve impulse and they'll be transmitting it to the cell body. Once again, I will repeat, a cell body consists of nucleus, cytoplasm, cell organelles, and Nissl granules, whereas dendrites are the short branching fibers projecting out from the cell body. They too contain Nissl granules. They receive the impulses and transmit it towards the cell body. Now the next one is axon. Axon is the longest fiber. So in a nerve cell, the longest fiber is known as axon. Even though it is unbranched for some distance, at the tip, at the distal end, you can see they form branches. See, you call it as axonites. So you can see the axon also branches at the tip. And the branches of this axon will end in certain knob-like structures, which you call it as synaptic knob, bulb-like structures. And these synaptic knobs, so inside the synaptic knobs, certain substances are present. You call it as neurotransmitters or acetylcholine. We have discussed about it earlier. Neurotransmitters or acetylcholine is one example of such a neurotransmitter. And they help in transmitting the impulse away from the cell body. Axon will transmit. So we already learned that dendrites, they will receive the nerve impulse and they will pass it to the cell body. And it is the axon which will take it away from the cell body. So once again, we'll summarize the different parts of a nerve cell. A nerve cell is a microscopic structure. Three major parts are there: cell body, dendrites, and axon. Cell body consists of nucleus, cytoplasm, cell organelles, and Nissel's granules, whereas dendrites are the short branching fibers. These fibers arise from the cell body and they too contain Nissel's granules, just like the cell body. They receive the nerve impulse and transmit it to the cell body. Whereas axons will transmit the impulses away from the cell body. It's the longest branch, means the longest branch of nerve cell. At the tip, they also form several branches. For some distance, it is unbranched, but once it reaches the distal end, it forms branches. And these branches terminate in some bulb-like structures. You call it as synaptic knobs. And these synaptic knobs contain synaptic vesicles, which are filled with substances known as neurotransmitters, which will help in transmitting the nerve impulse from one neuron to the next one. Okay, any doubt? And then here you can see Schwann cell. So Schwann cell you can find in myelinated nerve cells. So nerve cells you can categorize into two types: myelinated and non-myelinated. Myelinated nerve cells, they are having a myelin, it's a white color substance covering the nerve cell. You can see an envelope or a sheath, and that myelin, which forms the sheath, is released by the Schwann cells, named after the scientist who found it out. And then here they have mentioned about nodes of Ranvier. Nodes of Ranvier are the gaps in between. See, you will find that the myelin sheath is not found throughout. In between, you can find some gaps where the myelin sheath is not found. So those regions, you call it as nodes of Ranvier. And why are these nodes present? These nodes of Ranvier will help in speeding up the nerve impulse which is transmitted along the nerve cell. So with the help or because of these gaps, the nerve cell or the nerve impulse can transmit fastly along the nerve cell. Okay? Any doubt? Schwann cell's function is to produce or release myelin. This myelin will form a protective covering. It's white colored substance which forms a protective covering for the nerve cell. And nodes of Ranvier are the gaps where this myelin sheath is not found. And these will help in speeding up or help in increasing the pace with which the nerve impulse gets transmitted along the nerve fiber. Okay? We have a quick recap. Who did not get a chance? Doda?
Yes, ma'am.
Different parts of a nerve cell.
Cell body, dendrites, and axon.
Axon. What do you know about the cell body, Rijas?
Cell body has a cytoplasm,
Hmm.
nucleus, Nissel's granule, and cell organelles.
Okay. Nucleus you mentioned? Nucleus did you mention? Okay. Then, Mehak, tell me what you have understood about dendrites.
Dendrites are long.
Dendrites, not axon. Dendrites. Long or short?
Dendrites are short branch.
Short branches.
Branched.
And from where do they arise?
From dendrons.
Okay, but
From
from
the cell
where do
body.
dendrons arise? From the
From the
which
cell
part?
body.
From the cell body.
Cell body.
Then
They
too
carry
have
the impulse and the Nissel's granules.
its function.
They carry the impulse to the cell body.
They receive and they carry or transmit the nerve impulse to the cell body. And about axon, Gayatri, Anthony?
Long fibers.
Long fibers. Then?
Distal and distal end.
Not clear.
Distal end.
Distal end. At the tip it will be forming branches. And what is special about these branches?
Synaptic
At the tip of these branches, what do you find?
That terminators synaptic nodes.
Some bulb-like structures are there. You call it as synaptic nodes. And Steffi, what is special about these synaptic nodes? What do they contain?
They have synaptic vesicles containing neurotransmitters.
Okay. So we'll continue. And one more thing, one more point. This two types of fibers. Okay, anyway, we are going to see that. Myelinated and non-myelinated. So after that, I will tell you. Okay. And next is categorization of neurons or classification of neurons. Neurons, you can categorize or classify them into multipolar, bipolar, and unipolar neurons. Figures also, you can find motor neurons, multipolar, sensory neurons, unipolar, interneuron, multipolar. Okay. And what is the difference between these different types of neurons? In multipolar neuron, they will have one axon and two or more dendrites. What we are familiar with. We have commonly seen the structure of a multipolar neuron. They'll be having one axon and several dendrites. It's found in cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex, because in cerebrum, cortex and medulla, two regions are there. So you can find it in the cerebral cortex. Then bipolar neurons, they will have just one axon and one dendrite. Only one dendrite and one axon, then you call it as bipolar neurons. And in unipolar neurons, they will have one axon and no dendrite. There'll be no dendrite, one axon and no dendrite. This is found usually in the embryo. In the embryonic stage, the neurons will be in the unipolar state, whereas bipolar neurons are found in the retina of the eye. Once again, I will repeat, neurons based on the number of axon and dendrites, you can classify neurons into three types. Multipolar with one axon and several dendrites. Bipolar, one axon, one dendrite. It's usually found in the retina. And unipolar, one axon only. No dendrite, just one axon. It's usually seen in the embryonic stage. Then types of axon, myelinated and non-myelinated axon. So myelinated axon means when the axon is provided with myelin sheath, you call it as myelinated axon. If that is absent, you call it as non-myelinated. It is enveloped with Schwann cells, and it is these Schwann cells which will form this myelin sheath. You can find it in spinal and cranial nerves. And the white colored area, I told you myelin is a white colored substance. The white colored region, which is made up of myelinated nerve fibers, is called white matter. And in between the gaps of two adjacent myelin sheath, you can see nodes of Ranvier, or those gaps you call as nodes of Ranvier. I told you what is the function of nodes of Ranvier. It will speed up, or it will help the nerve impulse to get transmitted fastly along the nerve cell. And non-myelinated axon, here also Schwann cells are present, but they don't produce any myelin sheath. And where the myelin sheath is absent, so that appears to be gray. Gray, you can even write it as EY or AY, both spellings are correct. So the gray colored area without myelin sheath, you call it as gray matter. So in your brain and all, you know there is gray matter and white matter. So gray matter consists of non-myelinated axons or nerve cells without any myelin sheath. And you can find it in autonomous and somatic nervous systems. Once again, I'll repeat the difference between myelinated and non-myelinated axon. Myelinated axon, as the name suggests, they are provided with myelin sheath. Myelin is a white colored substance, and hence the region formed of myelinated axons or myelinated nerve fibers, you call it as white matter. And the gap between two adjacent myelin sheath, you call it as nodes of Ranvier. At the same time, there are some nerve cells where the axon is not provided with any protective myelin covering or myelin sheath. And their Schwann cells are there, but no myelin sheath. So that region will be gray in color. You call it as gray matter. You can find it in autonomous and somatic nervous systems. So one more picture you can see, an enlarged view of Schwann cell, myelin sheath and nodes of Ranvier. Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Now next is generation of nerve impulse. see how a nerve impulse is generated and how it gets transmitted along the nerve cell. Neurons are excitable because their membranes are polarized, means there is difference in the polarity, difference in the charges across the membrane, outside and inside membrane, there is difference in charges. So neurons get excited, they are excitable because their membranes can be, or membranes are polarized. There is difference in the polarity inside and outside the membrane. And neural membranes are polarized as selectively permeable ion channels are present on them. So this nerve membrane, the membrane which makes up nerve cell, they have some ion channels which are selectively permeable. They will allow certain ions to move in and out. So nerve cell or the nerve membrane is having some selectively permeable ion channels. Only selected ions will be permitted to move in and out. And because of the difference in the concentration of different ions, they can have differential charges across the membrane. Inside and outside, there can be difference in polarity or difference in their charges. So neurons are excitable, they get polarized because they have some selectively permeable ion channels. They don't permit all the substances to move across, but there are some selectively or some special ions which are free to move across the membrane. And now let's see the resting stage of a neuron. When a nerve cell, it's not excited, it's not transmitting any impulse. At that time, when a neuron is in the resting stage, axonal membrane, means the membrane covering the axon, is more permeable to potassium and nearly impermeable to sodium. So potassium ions are permitted to move in and out, whereas sodium ions are not allowed to move across the membrane. And this is in the resting stage. To be noted, at the time when it is resting or when it's not transmitting any nerve impulse, it will be permeable to potassium and impermeable to sodium. Not only to sodium, also to some negatively charged proteins inside the axoplasm. So inside the axoplasm, you know, axoplasm means the cytoplasm inside the axon. Axonal membrane is a membrane covering the axon. Axoplasm means the cytoplasm of the axon, the content inside the axon. So there are some proteins which are negatively charged inside the axon. So that is also not permitted to move out, or it's impermeable. The membrane is impermeable to that too. Once again, at the resting stage, when a neuron or a nerve cell is in the resting stage, axonal membrane will be permeable to potassium and impermeable to sodium. And not only to sodium, it is impermeable to the negatively charged proteins in the axoplasm. Hope you have understood till here. Neurons are excitable. Why? Because they have different charges across the membrane. Inside and outside the membrane, there is difference in charges because they have some selectively permeable ion channels within the membrane. So because of these difference in the ions, they have different charges across the membrane. So hence we say that it is polarized. It's a polarized membrane. There is difference in the electrical charges across the membrane. When a neuron is in its resting stage, axonal membrane will permit the passage of potassium ions, but it is impermeable to sodium and negatively charged proteins inside the axoplasm. Now here you can see, I don't know whether it is clear, in the textbook also the figure is given. What you see here is the membrane, axonal membrane. Just a minute. So this is the membrane. Okay. This is the axoplasm inside. Okay, these are the membrane, and inside it is exoplasm. And you can find here negative charge inside and positive charge outside. Positive outside, negative inside. Negative charge, positive charge outside. As a result, exoplasm. So exoplasm is here inside the axon. What you can see is the axonal membrane. Okay, these two are the membranes with exoplasm inside. As a result, the exoplasm has more concentration of potassium and negatively charged proteins and less concentration of sodium. So inside there will be more potassium and negatively charged proteins, but they will have less sodium inside. As a result, there will be a concentration gradient, means difference in the concentration of these substances across the membrane. Because of the difference in the permeability of substances, only potassium and negatively charged proteins will be more inside the exoplasm, but sodium will be less. So when there is a difference in the concentration of ions, it will result in a concentration gradient. A difference in the concentration of these ions is maintained. This ionic gradient, and this will be maintained also. Already I told it is having less concentration of sodium inside and more concentration of potassium and negatively charged proteins, and this will be maintained in the, we are saying about resting stage, it is maintained with the help of a sodium potassium pump. The same gradient or concentration gradient will be maintained with the help of a sodium potassium pump. So with the help of this pump, for every 3 sodium ions pumped outwards, 2 potassium ions will be pumped inside. That also will help in maintaining a high concentration of potassium inside and a high concentration of sodium outside. So in order to maintain this concentration gradient, a sodium potassium pump is working. For every 3 sodium ions pumped outside, 2 potassium ions will be pumped in. 3 ions will be pumped out and 2 potassium ions will be pumped in with the help of this pump, and this pump also will help in maintaining a more concentration of potassium and proteins inside and less concentration of sodium inside the exoplasm. So there will be more concentration of sodium ions outside. As a result, the outer surface of the membrane will be having a positive charge, and inside, because of the negatively charged ions and potassium inside there will be a negative charge present. This electrical potential difference, so there is a difference in the electrical charges across the membrane, and this electrical potential difference across a resting plasma membrane, you call it as resting potential, because the nerve cell is not transmitting any impulses. It is in the resting stage. So when a nerve cell is in the resting stage, inside negative charge is maintained and outside positive charge. And this electrical potential difference maintained across a plasma membrane, which is in the resting stage, you call it as the resting potential. So we can say the membrane is polarized. Polarized means there is difference in the polarity. There is difference in the electrical charges inside and outside. Have you understood till here? Have you understood? You want me to repeat? Now what we are going to discuss is about how a nerve impulse is getting transmitted along a nerve cell. So we started from a nerve cell which is resting. Then we will discuss about how it is generated, how an action potential is generated and how it gets transmitted. So when it is in the resting stage, inside there will be negative charge and outside there will be positive charge. So what is the reason? Because this membrane is having some selectively permeable ion channels. So with the help of that, more potassium ions and negatively charged proteins will be present inside the membrane or in the exoplasm. and more concentration of sodium ions outside. So this will result in a difference in polarity. Electrical or the charge difference will be there. Outside it will be maintained positive, and this maintenance is carried out by a sodium potassium pump. Throughout, when it is resting, this electrical potential difference will be maintained. Outside always it will be always means so long as it is resting, outside the membrane it will be positive charge and inside it will be negative charge. Only when an action potential or when an impulse is generated, there will be some alteration in this charges. Till then, when a nerve cell is in the resting stage, there will be negative charge maintained inside and positive charge maintained outside. If you need any clarification, you can ask. Only if you have understood this, you will be able to understand what we are going to discuss later. Just quickly, just read. Is there any clarification needed? This can be asked as an essay question, children. Just like when we discussed about muscles, I told sliding filament theory. Sliding filament theory, then the structure of actin and myosin can be asked as an essay. Similarly, from here, generation and transmission of electrical impulse or nerve impulse can be asked as an essay with the diagram. Diagrams seems to be very simple, but with the help of the diagrams, you can be asked to explain the transmission of a nerve impulse along the nerve cell. Shall I continue? Is it fine? Okay. So now you have understood what is meant by resting potential. So the potential, the electrical potential difference existing across the membrane when the cell is in the resting stage. So here the positive charge will be outside and negative charge will be inside. Why? Because inside the concentration of potassium and proteins which are negatively charged will be more, whereas outside potassium ions are more. And this difference in the charges will be maintained with the help of a sodium potassium pump. For every 3 sodium ions pumped outwards, 2 potassium ions will be entering the cell. Now we are moving on to the next topic, means next part of this. When a stimulus is applied at a particular site, so say for example A, here they have mentioned a site. Just imagine this is the site where a stimulus is applied. We are applying stimulus at site A. Then where the stimulus is applied, in response to the stimulus, that region becomes freely permeable. We told in the beginning, we had discussed that the permeability is different. It is freely permeable to certain ions, but completely impermeable to certain other ions. But when a stimulus is applied at a particular site, say for example A, and that region becomes freely permeable to sodium ions. Earlier it was impermeable. Now this becomes freely permeable to sodium ions. So what will happen? The sodium ions present outside will start moving inside. There will be a rapid influx, means inward flow of the sodium ions. Then what will happen? When more sodium ions enter, inside becomes positive and outside becomes negative. Only at that particular region, this region, the potential or the electrical charge will get reversed. This membrane is now depolarized. The polarity is changed and the potential difference across that site, you call it as action potential. So here, this potential difference generated here, you call it as an action potential, and this will be transmitted. So once again, I'll repeat for those who haven't understood. Resting potential, hope you all have understood. Now, nerve cell or any cell, they'll be responding in response to a stimulus. So when stimulus is applied, response will take place. So when a stimulus is applied at a particular site on this nerve cell, stimulus, say for example, site A, a stimulus is applied. Just imagine this region is A. At that region where the stimulus is applied, the permeability changes. Where the stimulus is applied, there the permeability will get changed. And as a result, when the permeability is changed, the sodium ions earlier under normal conditions, it was impermeable. Only with the help of a pump, sodium potassium pump, the exchange of ions were taking place. And here this becomes freely permeable to sodium ions. So sodium ions will start positively charged. Sodium ions start moving to the cell, means to the cross the membrane and reach the exoplasm. And as a result, what will happen? Here it becomes positively charged. Inside, the membrane becomes positively charged because of the movement of sodium ions. So here, when compared to the rest of the region, here you can see a reversal of polarity. At that particular region where the stimulus is applied, permeability changes. It becomes freely permeable to sodium ions, and sodium ions, because of the movement of sodium ions into the cell, there the charges gets reversed. Inside becomes positive, outside becomes negative. And this case, at this region or at this instance, you can call the membrane as depolarized. The polarity is changed, and the potential difference existing now, you call it as action potential, or you can even call it as a nerve impulse. Now, generation of nerve impulse has taken place. As soon as stimulus is applied, there the permeability of sodium ions will take place, or that membrane where the stimulus is applied becomes permeable to sodium ions. Earlier we told that it is impermeable to sodium ions, but with the help of a sodium potassium pump, that difference was maintained. And where this stimulus is applied, there the permeability of sodium will be enhanced, or it becomes freely permeable to sodium ions. And as a result, sodium ions will start moving into the exoplasm. So as a result, that particular region, site A, there will be a reversal of polarity. Under normal condition or in a resting membrane, inside is negative and outside is positive. But where the stimulus is applied, there inside becomes positive and outside becomes negative. So there is a reversal of polarity, and this potential difference across the site, yes, is known as action potential or nerve impulse. Okay. Now, how this nerve impulse is conducted. Now, generation we have learned. How it is getting generated, we understood. Now, how this has to be, you know that if the action potential or nerve impulse is generated at one region, it has to be transmitted. Okay, it has to be transmitted along the axon. And then once it reaches the tip of the axon, it will get transmitted to the dendrite of the next neuron. Generation of nerve impulse we understood, but how it is getting transmitted. Now at site B, now we are taking another site. Site A you understood. So here you can see site A. Site A, now this is site B. The region which is adjacent to site A, you can call it as site B. The depolarized site is site A, because there is a change in the polarity, and the site which is very close to that is site B. The outer surface of the membrane has positive charge, and inner surface has got negative charge. Okay, this region Under normal conditions, we learned it's positive outside, negative inside. At region A, there is a reversal. Inside became positive, outside became negative. So at site B, which is adjacent to the depolarized site, outer surface will be positive and inner surface will be negative. Now what happens? The adjacent side, here now there is a change. There will be a change in this polarity. Once again, I'll tell you, the depolarized side, positive inside, negative outside. Whereas the adjacent side B, positive outside, negative inside. But now the current will start flowing from A to B. Because outside the current flows, because it moves from positive to negative. From positive to negative, current will be flowing from positive to negative. So what happens is, inside there will be the movement of current, or the current flow takes place from A to B. Current moves from A to B, positive to negative, positive to negative. But outside, from B to A, the movement of current, or the current flow will be from B to A outside and A to B inside. The reason is the electrical charges, they are moving from positive to negative. So inside, the positive region is on A, at site A, and negative region is in B. So there will be flow of charges from A to B inside, whereas outside, the current flow will be from B to A. Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh? Have you understood, children? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Once again, I'll repeat. So at site A, I told there is a momentary reversal of polarity. And then once that has happened, if you compare the adjacent site, just a minute. If you compare, this is the adjacent site B. This is the adjacent site B. So here, because of the reversal of polarity, inside it is positive, outside it is negative. But B, it is positive outside and negative inside. Then what happens? There is difference in the electrical charges in the adjacent regions. Here it is positive, here it is negative. So current flow will take place from positive to negative inside the membrane, whereas outside, when from positive to negative it is flowing, it has to be from B to A. Understood? Is there any doubt, children? Do you have any doubts?
No, ma'am.
There's a
No, ma'am.
momentary reversal of polarity taking place. So can you summarize till here? Generation of action potential?
Ma'am,
Ah.
in the generation part, where is the ionic gradient, these sodium potassium pump present?
See, sodium potassium pump means across the membrane. It is scattered along the membrane. It's a mechanism like facilitated transport, we say. I think you are having learned facilitated transport means with the help of some carriers, the transport takes place. Okay, so that as such we cannot see anything, but it will facilitate the pumping or exchange of these ions. So without that, because of these impermeability, because normally I told it is impermeable. Permeability can be established only with the help of a sodium potassium pump. Under normal condition, it is impermeable, but with the help or facilitated by a pump, this can be transported. Okay, tell me children how the generation of nerve impulse is taking place. Just summarize. Punya, just start. Under a resting stage.
Cells
which
are polarized.
Yes. Neurons, they are excitable, they are polarized. Why do you say it is polarized? Because there is
Positive charge outside and negative charge inside.
okay. Then Malavika, continue.
Neural membranes are polarized as selectively permeable ion channels.
And channels are present in it. And tell me about its permeability, Gayatri. To what all ions they are permeable?
In the resting state, It is permeable for the potassium membrane and impermeable for the negative
Potassium?
charge. I mean potassium ion,
Huh.
and non-permeable for sodium ion.
Impermeable. Impermeable to
Impermeable for sodium ions and negatively charged ions.
negatively charged ions. Then Malavika. Malavika answered now? Did you answer just now? Okay. Steffi?
It is also impermeable to negatively charged proteins.
Okay. Okay. Then because of this, what will happen?
The axoplasm has more concentration of potassium ions and negatively
charged proteins, whereas outside there'll be more concentration of sodium ions. Okay. And as a result, Michael, what will be the charges under resting stage or in resting stage? What will be the polarity? What charges will be there inside and outside the membrane?
Inside it will be positively charged.
Inside positive? That is when reversal takes place. Normal, it's in a resting stage.
It will be negatively charged inside.
Where it is negatively charged?
Inside.
Inside. Outside?
Positively charged.
Why it is inside, it is negative and outside positive? Just now Steffi told the reason. What is the reason? What makes it positive outside and negative inside? Inside, what substances are more?
The potassium is more inside.
And negatively charged?
Sodium.
Negatively charged? Some substance, some nutrient. What is that? Starting with P. Which nutrient starts with P?
Potassium.
Nutrient.
Protein.
Proteins. And outside? Outside? Which ions are more?
The potassium ions. The sodium.
Inside and yes. Don't get confused. Repeat once again.
The potassium ions are inside and make it negatively charged along with proteins. And outside, sodium is positively charged.
Sodium ions are more, making it positive. Then, once a stimulus is applied, say for example, at site A, a stimulus is applied. Rijas, what will happen when a stimulus is applied at a particular site A? At A, stimulus is applied. What happens there?
Then the site become freely permeable to sodium ions
and as a result, what will happen?
Sodium ion will flow inside the
which makes
the inside the membrane negative and outside positive.
Okay. So we'll be continuing next class, and any doubts, please let me know. Okay. Thank you, children. See you next class.
Thank you, ma'am.